Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Lena. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to talk about another two books that I've recently read that are like so bizarre. I will say that they are both dark fantasy, but in a very different way. So the books that I'm talking about are Dark Apprentice by Val Neal and Sundance Daughter by S.E. Cooney. So hear me out. Both dark, but more like humorously dark. It is weird, but that's why I'm putting them together. Like, they tackle upon death, torture, losing limbs a lot, but still, they just don't have like that more darker atmosphere, you know, like for something like grim dark. It's very weird. I will say that this one is more dark fantasy than this one, but they are both kind of weird. So let's just talk about Dark Apprentice first. So you see, Dark Apprentice is my first 5-star read of the year. Interesting, I know. Needless to say that I love this book, but let's just try and talk about it a little bit more. It's not going to be just like my usual reviews, it's going to be a little bit more over the place, but let me tell you first what this one is about. So in this one, you're going to follow Nikolai and Medea. Medea is kind of an immortal mage. Well, not mage, magi? Magi? That's been around a long time. She knows all this stuff. But the thing is, all of her apprentices tend to try and kill her for her knowledge and such. So Nikolai is very focused on learning dark magic. So when he comes across Medea, he's just like, okay, I have to be her apprentice and then I'll kill her. So we're going to explore like this back and forth between the two, which is honestly great. By the way, I will just like to point out that there are some author notes at the ending that I actually really like. Throughout the story, you can realize that Medea has some trouble identifying some emotions, showing them, and she's very like strict and rigid. And by the end, you learn that basically the author has portrayed her as autistic. Great representation, taking into account that the author herself is actually autistic too. Also, Nikolai is has a very psychopathic personality, almost like very narcissistic, more, I wouldn't say psychopathic, I will say more like sociopath, but it's a very fine line there. But yeah, she also like did some research there, so very appreciated. Love the explanation at the end with the notes. Yeah, just needed to get that out of the way. But let's just talk about the plot a bit. As always, we'll keep this spoiler free. I actually really like the plot, but the thing is, there's not much of a plot in this book. Hear me out. Basically, you have these two characters and they are living together. He is trying to learn everything from Medea, but the only thing in his head all the time is like, this bitch, she's trying to poison me, because suddenly he starts feeling unwell the minute he becomes like his apprentice and they go to her island. So he's just like blaming her all the time. And sometimes you're reading the book, they are not directly in first person, but you can basically tell what's going on in their heads every single time. Like, it's very well explained. But besides that, there's not really that much plot going on. And let me tell you, I actually didn't mind it, because it's this type of story that the plot is very subtle, but when it's kind of resolved, at the end, you feel like this completion. You're just like, yeah, you finally see it. It felt great. I actually really liked it. I read this book like 100 pages at a time. So like, I was very invested from the beginning. I don't know, it has something. It has something that just like draws me in every single time. But yeah, overall, I really, really like where the plot led. And I'm very curious for book 2, like super curious. But the most important thing in this book are actually the characters, Nikolai and Medea. We do have some secondary characters like Harper and like Petrov at first, but the story is really focused on them. Also Yuxil, that's how you say the name, but you'll know if you read it. Their relationship is so toxic. And they both know it. Like, Medea had like this agreement with Nikolai, telling him that her apprenticeship, like, is going to be fucking ruthless. Like, if she has to maim him every single day she will. Like, she's so fucking ruthless all the time. But I love this fact, like, she never, like, really hides anything. Like, of course, there are some things that she doesn't want to tell, but she always finds a way to justify why she doesn't want to tell them. And she's always, like, upfront with the truth, which is such a cool contrast, having Nikolai, who's a pathological liar. Like, every single one of Medea's thoughts is just, like, super direct, or being, like, upfront and just being just like, damn, I have to confront him, have to tell him this is fucking awful, yeah, I behaved badly. And then Nikolai's thoughts are just like, this bitch, I'll kill her, she's probably just like trying to set me up. They are so different and they are so funny to follow. Like, I love this duo, so cool. Like, so cool. I feel like they are mostly working against each other in this one. Not Medea, but Nikolai definitely did it. So I'm super excited to see what book 2 just like brings to the plate, because I think it's going to be a super cool change. But yeah, I love both of them. They were fantastic. Like, the best part. There's sometimes like confrontations were so cool. Like, I love this so much. Like, I really like both of them, even though Nikolai is extremely unlikable. But there's something there. Like, sometimes you're just like, maybe he's not that bad, but then you're just like, whoa, what a piece of shit. It's very complicated. So the world in here is actually our world, but magic is everywhere, and they have like, Medea has like her own island, but it feels like interesting at the same time, because even though, you know, it's our world, it's set in the 19 somethings, I don't remember right now, but it's just after the war. Everyone is very tense. Magi used to be like very powerful, but now they are less and less, and even less powerful with time, which is such a really cool touch. I thought that I wasn't going to really like it because I'm more of a magical world type of person, but it worked great with this story because you know the context already, you know? So I don't know, I actually felt like it was interesting, even though there's not really that much apart from it being our world. It's very complicated. I feel like I liked more the fact that the lessons that Medea gives Nikolai about the magic, about how it works, about the different schools. That was great. But that's more said on the magic system. So here we have a magic system that's based around using mana. You have a limited amount of mana that you can increase with time, with practice. And then you can cast, like, I'll call them spells, but they are not really spells. Like some magi he used once, and Medea is all just like, wands are shit. So you better not use them. It's weird because at first they're definitely spells, but then I think they're kind of I wouldn't call them spells, even though they are spells in nature, basically. But yeah, I really like it. You can specialize in nature, you have necromancy, you have a bit of everything. Like, it feels like the field is great. And Medea having been alive for such a long time, she has this, all this type of knowledge from different magics, different cultures. It was so cool, man. Like, so cool. I really like how she was just like, you know, want to fix this? You can research it. Like, in a way, it reminded me a bit of the third book in the Arcane Ascension. Like, it had like that tone of investigating the magic and learning how to use it, which I actually really like. But damn, this book was great. That's all that I want to say, basically. This book was fantastic. I highly recommend that you check it out. I feel like it has a good rating, but I don't think it's actually fair, honestly. It's such a really right story. I don't know, it's really hard to I don't know, it's really hard to explain. I feel like it's such a complete story. Also, you get like your good amount of plot, you get your character, you get your world building, you get your magic system. And I don't know, it's such a cool duo. As I was saying before, it has this tone that is just like very fresh. Like, everything is serious. Like, the stakes are super high, but sometimes it's a bit like ridiculous. It's just really complicated to explain. You will have to read it to just like get the whole feel. But as I've told you, there's a lot of torture, a lot of death sometimes. Like, Nikolai is just out of his fucking mind most of the book. And he has like these depressive thoughts every single time. And for it being so dark, it didn't feel like the atmosphere was that dark. It's just super cool, in my opinion. It was just greatly done. But yeah, as I've told you, I gave it 5 stars. For now, my favorite book of the year. I was so invested reading this. I highly recommend you try it if you just like fantasy in general. If you're more of a character-driven reader, go ahead. If you're a plot-driven, I think you will also really like it. But yeah, it's great. So now let's talk about this one. This is Sandan's Daughter. So hear me out. I requested this book for review. It's coming out this week, or while you're watching this. Or is it next week? I don't know when I'm posting this, but you will see it soon. So basically, in this one, we're going to follow Lena. She's part of the Stones family, and they are a bunch of assassins. Basically, their power lies in death. But the thing is, Lena is born with the power of being a necromancer, which is something that hasn't happened in a long time. She has this thing where she's repulsed by death. And every time like someone is telling like, yeah, I killed someone, she has like this physical reaction. It's super hilarious. But side note, apart from that, we're going to follow her and a couple of members of her family. She's threatened to be thrown out of her home. Then there's an assassination. A lot of things happen in this book because you see it like this, you're just like, it's not that big. No shot. Like, the letter is so fucking small and this book is so dense. Like, oh my god. I'll talk about that at the end, but whew. So the plot. Let's just talk about the plot a little bit. This book definitely has a plot, but the problem is it meanders a lot. And when I mean a lot, I mean a lot. There's a part in the middle of this book where, for me, literally nothing happened. Like, they were just going around, going to parties, and that's it. Like, nothing else happened. So I was just like, dude, the beginning was so interesting. What are we doing now? It dragged a lot. And the writing style makes it even more difficult to just pay attention to this book. Because I'll say this, I know that I still have to talk about characters, but I'll say this. The point where every single reader is going to either hate or love this book is not the plot nor the characters, it's the world building and the writing style. I know it's weird, I never talk about writing style. But shit, this book. So yeah, the plot is okay. Like, it definitely drags a lot in the middle, but it's nothing like you can pass through it. Like, it's okay. But the plot in itself, a lot of things happen. Like, there's a lot in these pages. Like, the summary literally only covered like this tiny part of the book. So there's a lot. But yeah, about the characters, I will definitely say Lena is my favorite one. Like, she's just cool in general, even though she's basically kind of bullied by everyone, especially her sister. She was such a bitch, like such a bitch. I don't know, in a way their back and forth really worked at first, so that was really interesting. You have her relationship with Mac and with Canon. There's a bit of well, there's a good chunk of romance here, but I didn't feel like it was that prominent, even though some things at the end just didn't really like made much sense to me. But still, it didn't distract me because there's so many things going on in this book. But that part, I was okay, even though like it was literally tagged for romance, and it definitely has it, but I don't think it's like that prominent. And it's also like very settled from the first like chapters, like you know what's going on, so it felt fine. But let's just talk about the things that I really want to talk about, okay? World building. First, world building. The world building in this fucking book, it's even bigger than the book is. You will literally read a paragraph of something happening right now, and then you will have like 4 other paragraphs telling a story about a character that showed in that conversation. And that's something that I either love or annoys the hell out of me. So sometimes I actually really liked it because it was like a really nice touch. For example, if they were talking about their father, they would go out of the way to tell the story how the father wasn't really communicating with the mother, and then he left, and then he did this all the time. Like, it happened constantly. Like, it takes you out of the story every single time. But at the same time, the amount of world building for just this book is fucking over the roof. There's so many details. They have their own calendar, they have their own drinks, they have their own everything. And it's just so confusing, yet so cool. You know, like, when you first start reading this, you have no fucking clue what anything is. Like, it's so weird, so complicated. And you're there stuck being just like, what the hell is going on? But at the same time, I just fucking love the fact that this author took their time to just actually construct every single one of these things, which is super cool. I'm so stuck here because I loved it and hate it at the same time. Like, it's so confusing. It's so fucking confusing. And I do have to say that it gets worse because of the writing style. The writing style is so eccentric. It tries to be super lyrical and super detailed, and it's just not what I like. I just don't like it. In some books, I'm on board with it 100%. Like, for example, Strange the Dreamer. I just love that book. But in here, it just made the story so much more difficult to read. Because between the jumpings of world building and the super over-the-top writing style, it was such a mess. Like, sometimes I just completely lose whatever was going on. So you see, I remember reading this on a coffee shop, and of course there's a lot of noise and people going around, and I remember just missing a page, and then I had no fucking clue of what was going on. I was just like, wait a second, and I had to read every single page so many times. But at the same time, it really fits the story because it's a very eccentric, dark humor type of story. Like, as I've told you, there's a lot of necromancy here and a lot of death and torture and everything you can imagine. Like, this world is fucking dark. And if the character has to assassinate some people, like not Lena, but another character, they're going to do it. Who fucking cares? And it's very descriptive in that regard. But at the same time, as with Dark Apprentice, the world didn't feel dark. Like, this story was dark. It reminded me so much of the over-the-top horror that is just like a Dark Shadows, for example. That type of eccentricity, this one. So if you like that, you're going to fucking love this. But it's going to take you a while to get into this book. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's hard. Like, it's super hard. So at the end, I ended up giving it a 3.75 because I cannot fully commit to a 4-star review, nor either a 3-star, because it's better than a 3-star, but definitely not 4 stars. Like, my enjoyment was such basically on the ground for a lot of time with this book. So it's confusing. And I don't know, but you should really try it. I would love to talk about this book with someone else. Like, it's so weird. But yeah, those were basically the 2 books that I wanted to talk about today. Like, they're so fucking weird in their own way, but they're good, you know, they're good. So please, if you have read this, or if you're planning on reading them, or if you have a recommendation that feels similar to these books, just let me know down in the comments below. But as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye!